Hey, my still standing friend. It's Di, and welcome to the Still Standing podcast. This space was created for women who have lived through a chapter that she would have never chosen and is still trying to figure out who she is on the other side of it. So take a breath, settle in, and step into your own shoes. I can't wait for you to hear this episode. Listen, there's been something I've been meaning to tell you, and it involves my boobs. After breast cancer surgery, trying to find a bra that felt good all day can feel like a second job that I didn't apply for. But I finally found one that is soft and supportive and flattering and does not make me want to rip it off by lunchtime. It's from Handful. Handful makes an all-day flattering sports bra, and it's designed to lift without wires, and it's flattering without flattening, which I love, and it fits like a dream. It has serious support and buttery soft comfort with adjustable straps, removable pads, and none of the digging and pinching like I normally could have in a sports bra. And honestly, I wore it all day because it was so comfortable. I have an exclusive discount for you too. So go to handful.com and use the code 1969 for 30% off any product. That's handful.com, code 1969. I do earn commission when you use my code, so when you shop, you're also supporting me and the show. Your boobs deserve better, and frankly, so do you. Have you ever been genuinely curious about something? Like your whole little body leaned into it before your brain even had a chance to understand why. And then someone else's fear kind of marched in to the room wearing sensible shoes and shut the whole thing down. That's what happened to me when I was about 7 years old. I was standing on a sidewalk in my small town, staring through a big front window of a yoga studio tucked between a submarine sandwich shop and library. Okay, so before we jump in, I just want to give a quick note that this episode talks about inherited fear, childhood beliefs, grief, and body wisdom. It's nothing graphic or scary, but I do say the word cult more times than you would expect in a podcast. So I just wanted to let you know, keep it honest, keep it human, and because it's me, we're always doing something slightly ridiculous. Inside, people were sitting cross-legged on towels. Yep, not fancy yoga mats, not the Lululemon style. Towels, like from the beach. Very elite and late 1970s, early 80s wellness equipment. Fancy, huh? Some people had their eyes closed. It was a mix of men and women. Some were stretching and twisting. Some were balancing. Some were lying on their backs like it was kindergarten nap time. To me, it looked very peaceful. It was somewhat even magical. To my mom, it was nothing like that. She pointed through the window and said, "Those people were doing yoga." Then she added, with the confidence of a woman who had already closed the case, "You don't want to do that. It's a cult." A cult? Right there in broad daylight between lunch meat and the Dewey Decimal System? Oh, that's convenient, I guess. And here's the twist. Years later, the thing my mom warned me about would become one of the practices that helped me heal through her grief, through my breast cancer, through the moments in my life where life split and I didn't see things coming. I needed it the most. And the bigger twist was yoga was not the only time my body knew something before my brain did. Because years later, when Sean came into my life, I finally understood what people meant by butterflies. Not fear or panic, it was recognition. So today we're talking about yoga, inherited fear, curiosity, bare feet, and butterflies, and how to tell the difference between the warning that protects you and the warning that keeps you small. Namaste is what I would say now. Back then, I probably said something like, "Mom, why are those grown-ups sitting on towels?" I was about 7 years old, walking with my mom through our small town. You know, the kind of small town where everything important is within 3 blocks. The library, the sandwich shop, and the place where somebody's aunt works. A storefront that changed hands every few years, but somehow still smells like carpet, coffee, and someone's dream that almost made it. Smells you still think of years later. We were casually walking past the little yoga studio on my way to dance class, tucked between the submarine shop and the old library. And I can still picture it, the big front picture window, the kind of window that made the inside look like a stage if you were a nosy child and there was nowhere better to look. It also became a church later. And I was obviously a nosy child. I'm a people watcher, and I must have been doing that my whole life, but realized it more in my adulthood. Not in a bad way, but more like a early researcher, I don't know, tiny anthropologist in sneakers. I watched people and noticed their faces and noticed when grown-ups got quiet in rooms and when the place felt heavy and when it felt light. In this room, it felt light. Inside, people were sitting cross-legged on towels, eyes closed, hands resting on their knees, a lot of different positions. Some were twisting, balancing, some were lying on their backs. It just looked super peaceful, and it was like someone had finally given adults permission to stop pretending that they were exhausted and had to be in, work outfits and working all the time. To me, it looked super fun. It might have looked strange and out of place for our small town, but it wasn't scary. Like, these people knew something about being calm that the rest of us had not been taught yet. Their faces looked soft. Nobody seemed worried about dinner or bills or laundry or anything like that. And really, it just looked like something I wanted to do, even as a kid. I could tell something in that room was happening, and I wanted to be part of it. It was quiet and gentle, and something made me press my face against the glass and ask if children were allowed. Because I was 7 years old and I was available, so I could bring my towel, sit down, and have a good time. Then my mom looked at me because she noticed that I was looking with more intent as we walked past that big mirror. I must have been walking super slow. "Those people were doing yoga," she said. Yoga? I didn't know that word. It sounded exotic and adult-like, and possibly something that might even require like a special bag. And then she added very seriously, "You don't want to do that. It's a cult." A cult? Now, when you're 7, there are certain words that adults say that make your brain put down your crayons instantly and pay attention. Cult was one of them. I think just months earlier, we had watched the Jim Jones story. And so I had that word in my head, and it did represent something really awful. Cult was dangerous, mysterious. Like there might be robes involved or candles or secret things like a password. It just didn't sound right at all. And apparently this cult was something that was wide out in the open right here. This big wide window, everybody with their yoga mats, towels, all that stuff, just kind of hanging out, looking like they were having a good time, not that anything was bad. So I had to ask, what's a cult? Because obviously I needed more information. And if there was a cult next to the sandwich shop, the public deserved to know. I could create a poster and put it on the telephone pole and let everybody know that there's a cult right here next to the sandwich shop. So if you go to the library, don't go any further. Stop. And my mom said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that." Which, as every child knows, it's at least a assuring sentence that an adult say, right? Then she added something about it being a fad, which was another word that I really wasn't sure about those people being very free with themselves and their bodies. And then she did the classic redirection that adults do. Just think about kid stuff, dear. Kid stuff, that part really confused me. Because to me, kid stuff looked a lot like what those people were doing. Sitting on the floor, stretching, rolling around, lying down, just being quiet without anybody saying anything to you. It looked a lot like kid heaven. But there was something in the way that she said it. The adult finality, the tone that basically closes the door before you even realize you were standing in front of one. You don't want to do that. It's a cult. Think about kid stuff. And when your mom says something like that, especially when you're 7, you take it in. You do not say anything like, actually, Mother, I would like to explore the somatic benefits of mindful movement before forming a conclusion. No, you're 7, and you don't even know what any of that means. You're probably about to lose a tooth or a jacket that you just wore, and you absolutely have no authority over dinner. So you absorb it, you tuck it in, and you learn that something, and sometimes what you're curious about, is not safe to talk about. You actually learn that quiet can be a little suspicious, and that maybe people in bare feet might be up to something. And you learn without meaning to that someone else's fear can become louder than your own curiosity. But here's the thing about curiosity. It doesn't always die just because fear sets in someone else. Sometimes curiosity gets quiet and steps behind the curtain and enters the witness protection program of your life. And then years later, when you finally get ready, it taps the glass again and says, remember me? Remember me? You were watching at 7 years old with your nose pressed against the glass? Hey, here I am. Because years later, I did end up on that mat. Not outside the window this time. Not peeking in. Not standing on the sidewalk by my mom, giving me warnings that are ringing in my ears. I was inside the room, bare feet on the floor, breath moving in my body, hands at heart center, trying to understand how something so simple could make me feel like I had come back to myself. And eventually, I was not practicing yoga. I was teaching it. Let me say that again for the little girl that's standing outside that window. I became a yoga teacher. I am a yoga teacher to this day. The thing my mother called a cult became one of the ways I learned how to help people breathe again. Not in a secret basement, not in robes, just breathing. Just movement. Just people trying to return to themselves in bodies that have carried so much life. And it's been heavy. And honestly, I needed that space too. Especially through grief and breast cancer. And my life split moments when my body got the news before my brain could even tell what was happening. Because when life splits, your body knows. It holds the shock. It holds the bracing. It holds the breath that you did not realize you had stopped taking. It holds the clenched jaws and the tight chest. When your stomach drops and your shoulders are up to your ears. Just the stress that you're holding in your body. Yoga gave me a way to return to my body without demanding that my body be so impressive. And that mattered because so much of life asks women to perform and be strong and not be emotional. Be soft but not needy. Be successful but not intimidating. Be attractive but not vain. Be calm and also handle literally everything. And then somehow hydrate, meal prep, answer the emails, be grateful, remember the birthdays, and have toned arms and abs. No, thank you. Yoga did not ask me to do all of that. Yoga asked, can you breathe here? Can you notice what is true? Can you stop fighting your own body for 5 minutes and just be in the moment? If you're tired, fine. If you're scared, bring it. If you're stiff, welcome to the club because we have props for that. If you're brokenhearted, there's room in here for that too. And let me be clear, I did not learn to bend myself into a human pretzel spiritually. I am flexible, but I didn't do it that way. Absolutely not. My body has boundaries. But I learned presence, and I learned breath. And also that sometimes healing begins when you stop trying to outrun yourself. The word yoga, the word that once sounded like a warning label, became part of my healing language. Namaste. The light in me sees the light in you. Not actually a cult next to a sandwich shop. But I appreciate her concern. And shoes, don't even get me started because they didn't have any of those on. And I'm a shoe girl. I was totally baffled. But transformation can happen in bare feet. And I did it. And I still do it. And it can happen when you finally kick off the shoes that you've been wearing for everyone else. Those shoes that are the good girl shoes, or your wife's shoes, or mother shoes. The professional shoes that you wear, the I'm holding it all together shoes, and I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable shoes. The shoes that look responsible but pinch the whole time. All those shoes, all the roles, all the ways we try to stand in life that no longer fit. Sometimes healing starts when you stand barefoot and ask, what do I actually feel? What do I actually want? And what have I been afraid of because someone else taught me to be afraid of that? That is the yoga part of the story. But there's another part. Butterflies. I never understood the term butterflies in my stomach until I met Sean. Before him, I thought people were exaggerating. Butterflies? Really? That sounded dramatic. That's like some teenager writes in a diary with a glittery pen and a love song and dotting the I with the heart. I thought maybe people meant nerves. Or that there's a very specific feeling when your heel catches in the sidewalk crack and your whole life flashes before you in public. But with Sean, it was real. The funny thing is, in the beginning, we were just friends. It was back in the 90s, which meant that there was no texting someone a perfectly curated message and then checking whether they liked your story. There was no Instagram research department, no situationship vocabulary. We had feelings, landlines, bad lighting, and jeans that came up way too high on the waist. It was much simpler times. Lower rise with not yet a threat. I still remember seeing him across the room and feeling something in me shift. Not explode or fireworks. Just like this internal flicker. Something that made me think, there you are. And that was the feeling. There you are. Nothing dramatic had happened. No grand declaration. No hallway scene. No standing outside with the boombox or declaring dramatically our feelings. But something inside me already knew that he was going to matter. I don't know how. I have no idea. But it happened. And then later, when we would meet for lunch, later on in life, the butterflies, they would start before I even got into my car to go meet him. I pulled in and I would see him walking toward me, and there it was. That little flip. The good kind. The kind you can't fake. It was my body saying, pay attention. This matters. And that is what connects the yoga window and the butterflies for me. Both were body signals before I had the words. At 7, standing outside the yoga studio, curiosity knew something before fear got loud. Years later, standing near Sean, my heart knew something before my brain was ready to file the paperwork. In both moments, there was a choice. To dismiss it, explain it away, let someone else's fear take over, let my own overthinking take over, or listen. But did I always listen perfectly? Absolutely not. I'm a human, not a laminated self-help pamphlet. But I have learned this. The body talks, and all you have to do is listen. Sometimes it tightens or softens. Sometimes it says no before your mouth does. Sometimes it says yes before your brain's finished computing what the question was. And sometimes it sends butterflies. The crazy part is with Sean, it still happens. But I have learned this. The body talks. You just have to listen. I still get those butterflies with Sean. I still think about my mom saying those things when I was on my yoga mat. But I have learned this. The body talks. You just have to listen. And what do those butterflies mean to me now? It's not just nervousness. It's not the beginning of something. It's recognition. A signal that someone or something reaches you. Not just in the first chapter, but all the way through. Yoga reached me through a window when I was 7. Sean reached me across rooms, lunches, seasons, and decades. And both taught me something important. You have to be careful whose voice you let become louder than your own knowing. People will always project their fear onto what they don't understand. They will call things weird because they were so unfamiliar. They will call things a phase because they cannot even imagine them becoming part of your foundation. They'll call your curiosity dangerous because their own world feels safer with the door closed. And sometimes they mean well. I believe my mom meant well. Absolutely. She was protecting me with language and fears and belief and understanding of what she had at that time. Protection can still become a cage if you never go back and question it. That's the grown-up work, not blaming everybody who scared us or made us think that decisions weren't good to make at that time, not mocking the people who did not understand. Although, let's be honest, like calling a yoga a cult between a sub shop and the library does deserve a little bit of commentary. But the deeper work is asking, what did I stop being curious about because someone else was afraid? And what door did I not open because someone called it strange? What feelings did I ignore because I did not trust my own body yet? Because sometimes the things that seem scary at the time, or the word that you don't even understand, ends up being the thing that helps you heal. And sometimes the flutter you almost dismiss is your heart trying to tell you, this guy matters. So this episode's not really about yoga. Probably figured that out already. Or butterflies. It's not really about childhood sidewalk sandwich shop and my mom accidentally making Downward Dog sound like it's part of organized crime. And it's not about the butterflies or Sean, or even though honestly, that part still gets me. This episode is about the way we learn to distrust ourselves. Sometimes other people's fears enter the room before our own curiosity even gets a chance to speak. Think about it. A parent, a teacher, a partner, a friend, maybe it's church or some culture that you're in, workplace or the whole family system. Someone says, you don't want that. That's weird. That's not for you. That's dangerous. That's a fad. That's too much. Who do you think you are? And if we were young enough and tired enough and scared enough or trying hard enough to be loved, we believe them. We believe their fear. But fear's not wisdom. And sometimes fear's just unfamiliarity in a serious outfit. And curiosity is not always rebellion. Sometimes curiosity is your soul tapping on the glass and saying, look at me. There's something in here for you. This is why I call this one Cult It Out. Not because I'm suggesting anyone join a cult. Mom, if you're listening from heaven, please unclench. I mean, called it out, like cut it out. Cut out the borrowed fear. Cut out the warnings that were never yours. Cut out the old labels that made something beautiful sound dangerous just because someone else didn't understand it. Call it out. Ask what is actually true. Ask what is actually yours. And ask what your body has been trying to tell you underneath all that noise. So here's the lesson that I always try to bring back. You do not have to inherit every fear that was handed to you. You can respect where people came from and still choose a different doorway. You can understand that someone meant well and still say, that belief does not even belong to me. You can look back at the thing you were warned about and realized it was no longer danger. It was an invitation. Not every room someone calls dangerous is dangerous. Sometimes it's just unfamiliar. Not every flutter that you have is panic. Sometimes it's recognition. And not every closed door has to stay closed. Sometimes you're allowed to walk back, open it, step inside, take off your shoes, and become the person that you were curious about before the world interrupted you from that thought and that decision and opening that door. So here's the reset I want you to take from this episode. I call it the curiosity check. First, name the warning. What did someone tell you that was too weird, too risky, too difficult, too much, too late, too selfish, too unrealistic, or not for you? Second, find the owner. Is that fear actually yours, or did you inherit it from someone who was uncomfortable, uninformed, or wounded, protective or afraid, or not just working with the limits of their own story? Third, which is super important, is check your body. When you imagine moving toward that thing, what happens? Do you feel true danger or contraction? Or do you feel a small opening, a breath, a flutter? a quiet little, there you are. And fourth, open one small door. Just do it. You do not have to overhaul your life by Thursday. Take one class, write one page, make one call, ask one question, step onto that mat, because one honest sentence to yourself, just say it. Say that one honest sentence to yourself. That's how we begin again. Not by some dramatic reinvention. Sometimes it's just one honest question and bare feet. So where in life did someone else's fear get louder than your own curiosity? And what would it look like if you listened to yourself now? Just sit with that one. Maybe write it down in a journal. If this episode made you laugh, think, or remember something you tucked away years ago, come hang out with me inside the Step Into My Shoes world. This is where you'll find books like the Still Standing Method. You'll find meditations and courses and reflection tools, and the support for the chapters that life honestly did not ask your permission to give you. You'll find all that plus freebies in the stepintomyshoeshere.com. Until next time, keep listening to the part of you that is still curious. Keep noticing the butterflies. And remember, you do not have to inherit the fear. You're allowed to call it out or cut it out and follow the flutter because you are still standing. Thank you so much for spending the time with me on Still Standing with Diane Six. I do not take it lightly that you press play, especially when life already has you juggling 47 different things, one missing charger, and possibly a school email that has already ruined your day. This podcast really does feel like an extension of the whole Still Standing community. The stories, the laughs, and the, oh, thank God it's not just me moments. And the reminder that life can split wide open. And somehow here we are, still standing, still slightly annoyed, but standing. If this episode made you laugh, think, tear up, roll your eyes in recognition, or at me, text a friend who needs to hear this. I would love for you to stay connected. Don't forget to leave a quick review. It makes a huge difference, and it helps this show reach more people, especially the ones walking through a chapter they did not choose, and needing a little humor and honesty and proof that they're not doing this all alone. Until next time, take a breath, put one foot in front of the other, and remember, life splits, but you can still stand. Bye now.